All right. Good morning, everyone. Call to order regular meeting of the Personnel Subcommittee for October 8th, 7:31. First, the approval of minutes from September 10th, 2020. Did the meeting minutes look okay? Were there any changes?
Looked good to me.
Good. All right. And they will stand. So the item we have, classification work for the assistant town clerk positions. So we're looking at both a revision of the job description for the town clerks 1 and 2 position, as well as a change, proposed change to the salary. Maria, could you just do a summary of the proposed changes and the rationale?
Sure, absolutely. So what really prompted us to dig in and take a look at the positions in the clerk's office is that we do have an upcoming retirement of a staff member. That person will be retiring at the end of November, and they've been with us for a very long time. And the assistant town clerk 1 and assistant town clerk 2 positions the job descriptions have not been updated since 1998. So they are very dated, and they really predate so much of what we really do now in terms of our modern world with technology and software systems and things of that nature. Initially, when we chatted about a month ago, we were thinking about a potential restructuring, but the more we really dug in, we just didn't really feel as if that was necessary at the time, and instead really tried to focus on the housekeeping nature of, moving forward. We're going to be going again through a transition in that office, but let's at least make sure that the job descriptions and the salary range sort of reflect current duties and the market. So for the assistant town clerk 1 and 2 positions, they are represented by the CSCA union. They are in what we refer to as the SCNL, which is the Secretarial, Clerical, and Library Unit. And what we did in terms of the job description, really for both positions, it was quite a bit of just an overhaul because they were so dated. But we did put in your packet for you a markup so you could see what we were proposing to take out and add in. There was one substantive change on each of the 2 job descriptions. So for the assistant town clerk 2 position, ideally we would want that to already be a certified municipal town clerk. That is a process that generally takes, Melissa, correct me if I'm wrong, but about 2.5 to 3 years from start to finish. So really the person in that position, really we want them to already be as a certified town clerk. For the assistant town clerk 1 position, the one substantive change that we're proposing is that once that person has had enough time to get their clerk certification, at that point in time, there really is no difference in the duties that those 2 people are able to perform. And it is such a small office, that flexibility and having the ability to change out, the duties from even on a day-to-day basis, but just to have that flexibility and have both people be able to perform the same level of duties would be very helpful. So that was sort of the one change to the assistant clerk 1 position, is that again, once they've met the time essentially needed and the certification required to be a clerk 2, that they would automatically be reclassified. And that would most likely be about a 3 to 5 year process for that person. The other thing that we took a look at, and this is also in part, I've been doing the classification and compensation work in our municipal world in Connecticut for such a long time now. And I did have a feeling that our assistant clerk positions had fallen quite a bit behind market. So I really want to thank Tom Fitzgerald in my office and Erica. They did a great job helping us collect some very, very good comparable salary data, which we've also included in your packet for you. And the positions really had fallen considerably behind the market data. So we are proposing that we would change the pay grade for the assistant town clerk 2 position from an A7 to an A10, and for the assistant town clerk 1 position from an A5 to an A7. In the short term, this would not have a negative budgetary impact on the budget if we were to make the change now during the transition period. We are anticipating there is a possibility that we have a staff member who's currently an assistant town clerk 1 that will most likely be going into the clerk 2 position, and then either another internal or lateral, internal promotion, or an internal lateral transfer, or potentially an external hire for the other position. But essentially what's going to happen is those 2 folks in those positions are going to be at a much lower step on the range. So even if the range is adjusted upwards, again, for the current budget year, we're not going to see a negative budgetary impact, or most likely for a few years. And the long term, these people would have the ability to max out at a higher range. So, many, many years down the road, I think there's, oh goodness, Melissa, are there 8 steps for these folks?
There's 10 steps.
10 steps. Thank you. We have so many contracts, I forget the steps. Thank you so much. So, towards that end of that sort of 10-year period, there would be, again, a slight budgetary impact at that point in time. So we have submitted this to the union, and they are reviewing it concurrently. And I think with that summary, I'll just open it up to any questions you might have for Melissa or I.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple of questions, if I'm understanding correctly. So the elevation of the town clerk 2 position is to create more flexibility. Should the town clerk, be away for a period of time?
So right now, the assistant town clerk 2 position can be assigned to do that. And so really what it would be, it's the assistant town clerk 1 position. Once that person reaches a point in which they do have their certification, that's really where the elevation would occur. And we would have 2 assistant town clerk 2s, as opposed to what we were originally thinking, which was maybe restructuring and sort of doing a deputy position, which we scrapped that idea and decided to stick with the 2 assistants.
So the intent is that you hire someone as a 1, but assuming they're successful after a certain number of years, they'd be a 2. So we would have two town clerk 2s then.
Exactly, right. And exactly, because it does just take some time for somebody to obtain their certification. And oftentimes there are folks in the private sector that can come to us with transferable skills, particularly folks who have been real estate paralegals. That's a really good, for example, of just excellent transferable skills in the private sector that translate well to the town clerk work. And so, but unfortunately, they don't have the training as a clerk. They can't just get the certification quickly. It's a series of coursework over years. So that's the idea essentially with that clerk 1 position, as it does give somebody with transferable skills who hasn't actually had time in a clerk's office to really to get those clerk specific skills to then be able to get certified.
Wendy or Sean, do you have any questions?
I do. Just a quick one. So we have 3 staff total in the clerk's office currently, right, Maria?
Yes.
So I thought I heard you say that there was 2 folks looking to come in, and I thought there was only 1 retirement.
Oh, so right. So there may be some movement. So because of the current structure, even though the person in the assistant town clerk 1 position has their certification as a certified municipal clerk, the way it's currently structured is that that person doesn't automatically become a clerk 2 once they've obtained that certification. So it's very possible that we'll have a movement from a clerk 1 to a clerk 2. And if that occurs, we still have that one, the 1 position in the office that we'll need to fill. So we'll still only have 3 people total in the office, but most likely 2 moving parts due to the retirement.
I had a question on, so there's 2, regardless of retirements, if we have a town clerk 1 and town clerk 2 today, and the town clerk 2 obviously is closer and would be the, take over for the town clerk, right? I guess potentially if something happened.
Yeah.
But if the town clerk, what I heard was the town clerk 1, if once they meet their accreditation, they already automatically become a town clerk 2.
That's what we're proposing would happen. Yeah, that was the one substantive change for that position.
Yeah, so my question is just, from past personnel experience, does that create any issues that both people are now town clerk 2, and you really you have to just go by service? Does it create any animosity or any question on who supersedes who, that kind of thing, rather than, I know you guys had looked at the deputy, which is kind of a secure position. Nobody can become a deputy just by passing the test. Does that create any issues or anything in the office if they're both town clerk 2s, and we've jumped them, they're in the next salary range at a T10?
Sure. I don't think so, because generally it would be, a very short duration. Let's say if the town clerk is on vacation for a week or something of that nature, and then there would just be typically a person that we would sort of assign to be in charge for that week or a couple of days. If the town clerk was going to be out for a substantial amount of time, say due to a medical leave or something of that nature, because it's only an office of 3 people, it would be very hard for them for any extended period of time to go without a 3rd person. So then we'd really have to probably evaluate other options. Do we want to bring in a retired town clerk to come in and maybe fill in as the town clerk for a period of time to help us out? So again, if it was a longer duration in terms of an absence, we would definitely have to kind of evaluate that. But essentially for the shorter durations, a few days, a week-long vacation, that sort of thing, it would just be as we assign somebody to sort of be in charge, if you will, for that very, very short duration.
Maria, and to be clear, neither would automatically rise to town clerk. There would be an interview and a process and go through this committee, you, et cetera, right?
If there was a true vacancy in the town clerk position, that's in a separate bargaining unit. And right, exactly. And then we would go through a full recruitment process if there was like a true vacancy, as opposed to just somebody's out on a medical leave of absence.
And even if there was a deputy, that would still be true, correct?
Yeah, well, possibly. It would depend on which bargaining unit the deputy position ended up in. So possibly.
Well, I mean, the answer is yes, because the Board of Selectmen would have to approve the appointment.
Yes, that is true.
Right?
That is true.
So
that is true.
There's no automatic, regardless of contract. The Board of Selectmen, from the town manager's recommendation, has the final say for these level positions.
That's correct. And one of the, and we've brought this issue up to the union. It's not ideal. We do have a few division heads and one department head who are not in the supervisors union. For some reason, they were placed in the professional union, and that includes the town clerk's, the town clerk position. And one of the issues we've raised is we said it's not ideal for, a supervisor to be in a union that they could in theory be supervising, their subordinates, and they're in the same bargaining group. It's just not ideal for a lot of different reasons, particularly in the event of performance issues rise. And so that is a conversation we've raised in terms of, a home base for the town clerk position, probably not appropriate for the professionals union. And then one of the things in the A&P union, as well as the clerical union, is within the bargaining group. If there is a job posting, there's essentially like an internal preference language section within the collective bargaining agreement, but it's for that union. So it would be positions just within the clerical group or positions just within the professional group. So there are a few nuances, but yes, Sean, you're right. You're absolutely right. For the town clerk position, there is sort of a formal, process, and that position does have to be also appointed by the Board of Selectmen.
So I have one other. I said I have my corporate job in my head. So we have the town clerk too, who has a lot of experience, right? Has been in that role, whatever, at the T10 level. And then you have a town clerk 1 who comes in and after 3 years passes the test to be a town clerk 2, the next level, correct? Is that an automatic promotion? I mean, it sounds like it's an automatic promotion, whereas is there any other criteria requiring that they get that promotion to the next level, other than just passing the test? Because you would hope that it's a true promotion. They need to deserve the role because the other person worked hard to be in that 2 level. They shouldn't automatically have a peer, I guess.
Yeah, so really the distinction between a 1 and a 2 really is, in my opinion, the certification and that time that you're spending gaining that, the hands-on experience, as well as taking the coursework and passing the certification process. Because in theory, once somebody has that certification, they have the skills that are necessary to do all of those functions, and again, interchangeably with one another. So that's really sort of the difference between, again, somebody coming in fresh, that first 3 to 5 years, they don't have any municipal clerk specific experience, they're taking the classes, versus once they really do achieve that, they really do have all the skills necessary to do all the functions of the clerk office in terms of the statutory duties. They just have that knowledge and skill set, and they're really able to just fully perform those duties at that point.
Okay. Wendy, do you have a follow-up?
No, I just, I guess is that how it works in other departments? I guess that there's not a deputy, and that there's, the step levels that lead up to the next level, and that the same would happen.
This is how it works in unions, period, Wendy. I mean,
okay. Lack of
it's where it's so different from the corporate world, and trust me, I get it. I always put my corporate hat on too for these, but yeah, I mean, this is essentially how it works in the union contract world. And remember, the individual that comes in from an A1 to an A2 doesn't come in at the same pay. They come in at the same pay scale,
Yeah.
but then they would start at the bottom step. So in the union contract world, Maria, correct me if I'm wrong, that's the differentiation for experience.
That's
Right.
correct. Right. So when somebody does move up a pay grade or a couple of pay grades, it's in that particular contract, the clerical contract, it's generally a 5% pay increase. But you're right. I mean, if somebody is a more tenured employee, they're going to be much higher up on the range. They'll be at a much higher step versus a more junior employee, they will be at a much lower step. And that's also something that we're very cognizant of as well when we're negotiating with potential new candidates. Within our sort of municipal unionized world, is we're very, very careful to make sure that we're not bringing in a more junior person within the same classification at a higher step than an incumbent. So it's just something we have to be very aware of and we're very careful of.
Which is, again, something I'm not used to, and I'm sure you're not too either in the corporate world, right? Because we get sued for that in the corporate world if you have people doing the same job for different pay. But in the union world, that's the way the contracts are structured.
Yes.
I have one more question along the step. If for some reason, just drastically, there was an issue given, that our town clerk quit tomorrow, and we had is there this, what's the word? Secession plan? Like would someone automatically step in? Would we be at a loss to not have a town clerk when we need one?
Yeah, so again, that's just something that Melissa and I would have to evaluate. And really with so many of our position, our departments, we just don't have a lot of true number two folks. So again, it would be looking at our internal resources and, do we feel that we have somebody who's best positioned to be able to fill in on an interim basis, have staff members pick up extra hours, again, maybe ask a retired, former clerk to come in and help fill out. So it's really, when we have those sort of unexpected retirements or unexpected resignations where we just don't have a lot of time. It's really just, again, sort of Melissa and myself and Eric from my office kind of sitting down and figure out, how can we get the job done until we can get a permanent person appointed. And it varies. It's not necessarily a one size fits all approach. It just sort of depends on the resources that are available to us.
Okay. It's kind of like what we did with the finance director, right, Maria, when you first came in?
Yeah, that's a really good example.
So Wendy, just for memory purposes, we lost our finance director, and while we were looking for Amy, we brought in a retired finance director that Maria had a relationship from another town on a temporary basis to get us through the budget process.
Okay.
Because it was such a key staff position. So, and then in the case of the police department, when the chief retired, we had the captain, who's now the chief, but so that was where we did have a clear number two at the time. So those are two different examples where secession or non-secession was in place.
Those are great examples. Thank you.
Okay.
But your questions are right on, Wendy. It's a challenge, and and as we talk about staffing and everything else, and as we have these discussions during the budget time with the Board of Finance, we are really, really thin from a staffing standpoint across the entire town. So we all want continuity, but it's a challenge from a budgetary standpoint. So we need to keep looking at these.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any other questions before I attempt this motion? Okay. Is there a motion effective October 8th, 2020 to revise the Assistant Town Clerk 2 and Assistant Town Clerk 1 job descriptions as presented, and further to endorse a salary range for the Assistant Town Clerk 2 position at grade T10 of the S, C, and L employees pay plan, or $29.20 to $34.90 an hour, or the equivalent of $53,144 to $63,518 a year, and to endorse a salary range for the Assistant Town Clerk 1 position at grade T7 of the SC&L employee pay plan, or $25.62 to $30.59 an hour, or the equivalent of $46,628 to $55,673 a year, and further, to forward the proposed revisions to the full Board of Selectmen for their review and consideration.
I'll make a motion.
I was going to say, please don't make me read that again. Okay.
Sean has to second it if he's out there.
Oh, I was on mute. Sorry, I second it.
Oh, all right, cool. Thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that's all of us. Thanks for the work and research on this.
You're welcome.
Um,
Eric, just one quick thing in regards to the agenda. Would it be possible to flip our executive sessions? Because I
Yeah.
would like to have Melissa and Eric join us for the grievance update. So if it was possible just to flip the order of those two.
Yeah, that's actually what I was thinking about.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. So is there a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss an update on a grievance arbitration and also to discuss the town manager's contract renewal? For the update on the grievance, we'd be joined by Eric Gomes and Melissa Appleby and Maria Capriola. And for the town manager's contract renewal, it would just be Maria.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So we had a discussion in executive session about the length of the town manager's contract. And initially it was set at 3 years, which would then coincide with the Board of Selectmen's terms. And we wanted it to be staggered for various reasons. So there was consensus to extend the contract to 4 years. So it would expire in 2025 instead of 2024. So I want to see if there's a motion to forward this contract to the Board of Selectmen for approval with that change.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Great day, everyone.
Guys.